Why does it always have to be perfect? An email, an Instagram post, text messages, it doesn't matter what it is. I have to find the perfect word every time. Hey, I'm Dr. Regina McMenomy, and I'm a coach for late diagnosed folks with ADHD and autism. Catch me on Instagram at Dr. Regina Ph.D. and subscribe to my newsletter, Nerd Notes. The link is in the show notes. So perfectionism doesn't always show up like having an obsessively clean house or color-coded planners or an organized desk. Sometimes, in my case in particular, it shows up in rewriting a sentence for the third time because you want to land it just right. I see this a lot in my writing, and I attribute this to the fact that words are my first love. Words are the thing that I fell in love with writing, I fell in love with reading, and I fell in love with vocabulary at a very young age. And I've realized as I've come to understand my late diagnosis better that words are how I make sense of the world and how I make sure or attempt to make sure I'm not misunderstood. So I spent a fair amount of time this week editing my newsletter, Nerd Notes, and I caught myself yesterday over editing. And I cannot tell you how much time I spend over editing. I really need to learn not to do that. I need to get to a place where I feel confident enough to be able to say, this is good enough. And when I'm feeling insecure, I find that my perfectionism shows up the most at that time. But there's also a part of this, I always thought that my drive toward finding the perfect word was because I'm a poet. The first genre of writing that I fell in love with wasn't academic writing. It wasn't writing essays. It wasn't writing, cultural analysis, which is what I did for most of my academic career, or like the technical writing that I taught. I fell in love with poetry, and I love writing poetry. And when you're a poet, you learn to be very precise with language because the most effective poems are poems that have words that hit hard and hit quick, both in like what they make you see and what they make you feel. Like that's all of what poetry is. Poetry makes you see things and makes you feel things. And so I always thought that my tendency to want to make sure I found just the right word was because I was a poet. But I realized yesterday, as I was editing the newsletter, that that's not what it is. That my perfectionism in writing is a means of control. It's a means of me feeling control over the words that I'm providing to, my readers, in the way I am teaching the concepts I'm teaching in those emails. And I want to make sure I get everything right. Further from that, not just that I want to make sure that my message is correct and that I am presenting the information correctly and in a way that people can understand it. That exacting nature is also because I want so deeply to have my words help me be understood. And this is the crux of where it comes to why my late diagnosis is so significant in this. I have struggled to be understood for so much of my life. I have struggled with people misinterpreting what I say, with thinking I have an agenda that I don't have, that I'm say something and I have ill intention, or I'm saying something in a direct way to be mean. And I'm not. That is not what I'm doing with my language. And now that I am recognizing more that I'm auDHD, so I'm autistic and I have ADHD, this relates to my autism, that need for perfection and that need to have my words help me be understood. That's what's driving part of this perfectionism, part of that drive, part of that want to find the perfect word, to find the perfect phrase so that I don't hurt anybody's feelings, so that I can get the point across that I want to get across, that I don't come off as too aloof or too direct or too harsh or any of these things. This is a way for me to try to contain and control my identity and who I am as I am putting my words into the world. And because I am an academic and I tend to like words, that precision and that drive and that knowledge for all of those words can be intimidating. And it can seem, like I said, aloof or cold or distant. And I don't mean to use those words for any of those reasons. I'm not trying to show off my vocabulary. I am literally trying to make sure I use the right word, not the word that can communicate what I want to say, but the right word. I want it to be accurate. I want it to be precise, and I want to be perfectly understood. And that's where my perfectionism in writing comes from. And this has been such a light bulb moment for me. I'd be fascinated to know if you're listening to this and you find that perfectionism shows up for you when you're writing. Let me know. Hit me up on Instagram at Dr. Regina Ph.D. I'm going to talk about this in Nerd Notes as well as I sort of unpack it a little bit more and I get into my understanding. I'm going to share this with my clients because I feel like this is a really profound insight about how perfectionism relates to control and control over things that you are very passionate about, that are words are definitely a special interest for me. Writing is the only persistent thing I have done through my entire life. I've always been a writer in one form or another. So this is a persistent special interest. And that's one of the reasons why this perfectionism is so focused and so profound in my life. So let me know. Send me a message, send me a DM. I'd love to hear about how perfectionism shows up for you. So until next time, stay regulated and say what you really mean, even if you don't get the perfect word.